So this is a very in-depth guide about cold email and the psychology you need to understand in order to create a good cold email. So first thing to note is that cold email is basically a reflection of your level of understanding of marketing. It's nothing other than that. In marketing, you can just put it as understanding your prospects and your current situation and your offer at a deep level. So the psychology of a perfect cold email is, first of all, that you need to put yourself in the other person's shoe. So people tell you that you shouldn't do long cold emails and you should try to lean more heavily towards shorter cold emails. Well, there's a very good reason why people say that, and that's simply because people, if I'm reading my email, and I do this, right? I'm reading my emails, I just don't have the time, or I just don't want to read all the words of the email, right? I just skim through the lines and get to the important bit. And so that's exactly what your prospects are doing. So keep that in mind, that they really don't give a shit about you. So you have to make yourself interesting to them. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, I'll tell you a story. There was this agency in the past. I don't know if they're still operating, but their entire business model was that they would generate leads for you, but they just wouldn't tell you how they did it. And so they were, reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from client retainers because they were generating leads. They weren't lying. But and the cool part is that they didn't have any problem getting new people because it was really intriguing, right? If I was sort of a magician, right, and I told you I would give you a 2x return on your investment every single time you made an investment to me, you would probably give me your money every single day because you wouldn't want it to compound. So the reason this specific agency worked is that they had some sort of curiosity, and they got people curious. So my point here is that people won't care about your email, so you need to understand that you must get their attention. So the way you do this is not by making a clickbaity subject or clickbaity email, but by making them curious. So I'll give you another concrete example of this. One of our best campaigns with one of my clients is a podcasting offer, and we had a lot of competition because there's a lot of people that repurpose podcast content, and there's even AIs that do this now. So there's a lot of competition, and we needed to stand out. So the way I did this, and this is purely copywriting. Keep in mind, there's no targeting angle, whatever. It's purely copywriting. And the way I did it was that I found a new angle, and I won't take all the credit because my client started with the idea. I just put it in motion. But the idea was a new type of content that people don't generally consider as content, but I can't reveal it because we're still using this campaign. But it was basically a new offer that no one really makes because they most likely haven't thought of it. But the point here is that it was new and it made people curious. And so imagine it as Amazon in 2015 telling you that they would use a secret system to ship whatever order you made on their site in 2 days, right? But they wouldn't tell you how they did it. Well, you would certainly, if you tried it, then you'd of course just go with them forever. But if you hadn't tried it, this level of curiosity would have pushed you to try it, right? It would have made you take the first step, and this is the most important step, right? So this is an important part of psychology, right? Of psychology in cold emails. It's curiosity. The second thing you just have to get your mind to understand this is that people need value, right? For example, I'm a business owner. I do not care about people contacting me about lead generation, for example, because that's my job. So whenever I receive a cold email from a guy saying that he'll generate leads for me, I read the email, but simply because I just take inspiration from that. And so for example, I've even taken newsletters and created a folder in my email inbox that would put newsletters in there, and this would give me ideas on copywriting strategies, subject lines, stuff like that. So the psychology behind a good cold email is value driven. So how do you give out value? You don't just give value by giving something concrete. So for example, a copywriting swipe file. That's not the only way to get value, and that's where most people, miss the bigger picture, because value is not defined by something concrete. You can give value, for example, I'll give you another concrete example of how this email script gave value and got crazy responses. I actually have the stats on this one, and I ran it for EU and North America time zones. And so I'm getting around 1 positive reply per 300 emails sent, and 50% of those positive replies get turned into calls. So you could say 1 call every 600 emails sent. This is a very good ratio, by the way. And this is for a lead generation offer. But the way I did it is that I literally detailed exactly how I structured my script. So my cold email script for a specific niche. So let's say hotels. Well, I literally detailed what I would use as a cold email for hotels in bullet points. And they were very straightforward. If they wanted to copy me, they could. But the thing is, and the cool part about it, is that it was a difficult thing to do. You had to do it manually. And so my value was that, first of all, I was giving them my idea, and I was also pointing out how valuable that idea was, because I gave them like this exact copy generated X amount of calls in X amount of days. But the cool part about it is that they now recognize me as a valuable person that, first of all, has shared valuable information about their processes, and second of all, they can't do it themselves because it's a difficult task to do, and the only way they would do it without me is by spending time on it manually. And I know that one of the biggest pain points of my future clients is that my prospects, is that they don't have time on their hands for prospection. So this is a perfect example of giving out value in a subtle way that gets the lead to, first of all, familiarize themselves with you, and also to be intrigued with how you can automate or streamline this process. So if you master these two, you've basically gone 80% of the way. But let's get a bit more in depth on the psychology here. So the third thing is simply that they need to feel valued, but not in the same way as a value-driven email. They need to feel like you spent some time or some effort into this email, not because they need it personally, but because they want to feel valued. They want to feel respected, and they want to feel like you've respected them as a human being, and you've respected that they have time, their time is valuable, and therefore you're going to do enough research for it to actually be valuable for them to read the email. So concretely, what does that mean? Well, you're going to have to personalize it to them. I know you hear this all the time, but it's a real thing, right? If you're receiving tens of emails a day that aren't tailored to you, then there's no reason why you should reply to them. But if you're receiving one email that stands out from the crowd because they really put in some research and really took the time, then you'll reply to this one because you'll feel like, you'll actually be happy, right? If I receive an email, and I still haven't yet received an email like this, but if I receive an email of, for example, a web design company that has really taking time to go on my website and give me 3 suggestions, for example, of things to change, and I want them to be easily implemented, things that I know will improve this, so not just some stupid shit like change your logo colors or whatever, actual things that will make me money or gain more traffic or whatever, but something that I can measure, then I'll feel like it's useful and I'll reply to that email. I don't mind about replying to emails. They just have to be well written and made for me. So this is something you really have to take in mind, right? And this goes hand in hand with, putting yourself in their shoes, because people are human beings, and you often forget that after writing too many cold emails, because with outreach, the positive is that you have data, so you just rely on data. But the negative is that you're separated from the people themselves, because you're reaching out to lists of thousands of prospects, and you sort of get disconnected, right, between the email you send and the receiver, so the person receiving the email. And you have to force yourself to put yourself in their shoes. And this is why it's so difficult, because when you're sending an email to your friend, it's easy to put yourself in their shoes, because you know how they think, you know how they'll react to certain words you say, blah, blah, blah. But when you're reaching out to thousands of people, how do you make sure that they have the exact reaction that your friend would have if you said this word, and that they would have the same reaction as that friend, right? Very difficult thing to do, and that's why copywriting is so valued. But these are basically 3 things to keep in mind, and you must try to implement them every single time in every cold email. So take a deep dive into your cold emails and really take your time to sense if you're giving enough value and if you've taken enough time in the prospect's shoes for this to be an email that they would read or open.